What is up, guys, and welcome back to Danny Reacts, and happy Halloween. It is Halloween, so we're going to watch a scary video. And what is this video called? It is called Top 10 Terrifying Scary True Stories. These are based on true stories, and they're scary, and I love my scary fix. And this is going to be like all audio, right? There's no video, so put your headphones in or whatever, leave this video in the background, and let's hear these true scary stories. I'm excited. Give this video a big thumbs up, and thank you for 122,000 subscribers. Let's go check out these terrifying true scary stories, and here we go.
My wife and I are outdoorsy people. Our first date was a picnic in the middle of the woods. Our wedding was in my parents' backyard, which is almost surrounded by forests. This matters because this story begins and ends in a forest.
Oh God.
Late summer of 2014. It was one of those moist kind of summer days. My lady and I went on our weekly stroll or hike through a forest near our home.
Okay.
About 3/4 of the way through, she noticed a pile of hair, wire-like hair. Of course, we didn't touch it, but we didn't know what to do. It was clearly hair from a person's head, not an animal or anything.
That's
but other than that,
creepy.
we didn't think much of it. The next week, we went back, but this time the hair was gone. In the place was a letter. Clearly had just been placed there, as if someone was waiting for us. The letter read, "Why did you ignore me?" I told my wife it was just trash, but obviously she didn't believe me, but knew she would be better off. Early summer of 2015, nothing had happened ever since. I wish it would have stayed that way. We walked around the same area that we made our discovery. We never really talked about it. If it did come up, we would joke about it, saying that Brittany was at it again or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, at this time, my wife is about 4.5 months pregnant. So we
Nice,
just
good for
took an
them.
easier path to walk. About halfway through our walk, I heard a whimper to my right. I looked and there was this woman, about in her early 40s. She was
What?
dirty, as if she had rolled in dirt for days. She was holding onto a tree, digging her mostly broken or numbed fingernails. I took my wife's arm and led her behind myself, and I asked, "Ma'am, are you all right?
I would
Do you
run
need me
away.
to call someone for you?" She replied, but I couldn't make out what she said. "Pardon? Why? Why?" She started vomiting what looked like black mud. I motioned my wife to start walking away while I stayed back to make sure she didn't follow or chase us.
That's good.
She didn't hesitate to start walking off. Knowing she was pregnant was most likely the reason, but when the woman noticed my wife walking away, she charged at us. Unknowing of her strength, I didn't prepare to be pushed down. I fell onto my back and she was on top of me. She tried to scramble up while staring in the direction my wife was now running in. I tightly wrapped my arms around this woman and she started vomiting onto my forehead.
That's disgusting.
She tried screaming,
No.
but she would just choke. Once she had finished, she screamed, "Why did you ignore me?" But I was too engaged in the idea of how the fuck am I going to get out of this.
Yeah.
I started to wiggle to try to get myself on top of her. But once I did, what next? Stand up, shake hands, and leave? No. My face was right on her upper chest, so I couldn't just whip my face into hers. I got my arms out from under her, and I used them to hold her arms down, and I lift myself, almost like a push-up. Then I press my foot-filled boot onto her stomach, then I mentally count to 5. Then I accidentally kick her chin with my other foot-filled boot, and I take off. I look back at her, gripping her jaw and reaching for me while screaming. It's amazing how fast a person can run when they feel like they could die.
That's true.
I dodged every rock and tree. I even went off the trail just in case she ever got up and ran for me. Eventually, after what felt like hours, I meet the edge of the forest and the side of the road. Our town is half a forest.
But where's his
I look
wife?
left to right, no wife to be seen.
Oh,
I
no.
ran to her car and she wasn't anywhere to be found. I leapt into the driver's seat and started screaming and pulling at my face, punching the wheel and stomped. I leaped into the driver's seat and started screaming and pulling at my face, punching the wheel and stomped. Then I heard crying and screaming in the back, and it was the love of my life, laying on the seats holding her ears and knees to her chest, or as close as they could get. I pulled myself back there so fast I don't even remember, and I hugged her so fucking tight she smacked me off because of the vomit on my head.
Yeah.
We did not call the police because this experience caused my wife a lot of stress and sleepless nights that she
Yeah, I
had
could
a
imagine.
miscarriage, and we chose to forget. We do not go on walks that aren't by roads or buildings. It's been 5 years since then, and we have 2 beautiful boys.
Nice.
We never saw this woman again, and I hope we never do.
That's honestly so creepy. So like they just went for like a nice little walk in the forest, and there's some creepy lady with full of dirt and like vomiting like mud, and it's honestly so terrible. And it's good they're okay, because like that's creepy. And yeah, number 14.
I was sleeping over at my friend Jacob's house in September of 2015 with another friend of ours. Jacob lives very far out of the way next to a lot of forest land in northeast Pennsylvania. Now, I do not get frightened too much anymore, but I have always been creeped out by the barren woods around his house at a very young age. The story begins at around 11 o'clock at night with the 3 of us hanging out in the large field that stretched for about 800 yards from Jacob's house to the thick woods.
Okay.
We got bored out there after a while and decided to go back to the house. When the 3 of us were about 200 yards away from the house, we looked back to 3 bright red road flares scattered far apart from each other in the field. We were not very scared at first because we thought it was Jacob's 18-year-old brother and his group of friends that were also over that night playing a prank on us.
True.
We walk a bit further to see that Jacob's brother and his friends were hanging out by the house.
Ooh.
So there was no possible way they could have lit the flares. His brother, along with his friends, began asking us why we lit flares up in the field, and we explained that we thought it was them who did it. Well, the next thing I know, the whole field was lit up with spotlights and car headlights from all of the 18-year-olds and Jacob's dad. Whoever the trespassers were, they had put very sharp pieces of scrap metal, almost like they were trying to sabotage us if we would come after them with any kind of vehicle to pop the tires.
Damn.
The group keeps saying that they were seeing multiple silhouettes of people running along the edge of the high grassed field and the woods. One of the 18-year-olds, Joe, went chasing after one of the trespassers, which he had seen sprinting in the woods. He had lost the guy, but what he had brought back with him still sends chills down my spine.
Oh god, oh god, oh god.
Joe brought back a potato with a very sinister face drawn on it that he said he found on the ground.
So that was like this kind of face, I guess, with like the raisins and like, that is kind of creepy.
Time passes and Jacob's dad tells Jacob and I to stand up on the tree fort that their family had built with a spotlight. The tree fort was about 35 yards into the woods and was lower to the ground yet wider across. We were standing up there scared shitless, searching the woods with the spotlight. About an hour passed and we all decided to end the search. When we all began driving back to the house, Joe once again saw a shadow, but get this. He saw 2 shadows that came directly underneath the tree fort, then ran off. This time, Jacob's dad went to go check it out because he saw the figures as well. 15 minutes later, his dad came back with a strange look on his face. He did not see the vandalizers, but brought back something that made me want to pass out. A second potato with an even more evil-looking face on it that he found underneath the tree fort. The stalkers that were on the property were feet below me and my friends for nearly an hour. Now, to some people, this would just be a normal case of pranksters. Believe me, it was more than that. The question I ask myself to this day is what the hell were a group of very stealthy people doing on a large property in virtually the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
Even if it were just the very few neighbors that live nearby, they are all in their older years and would not have the desire nor stealth to pull this prank. I also wonder how stealthy the group of trespassers must have been to not be seen by our whole group with vehicles and spotlights. We didn't even see their bodies at all. All we ever got to see of them were their shadows and the horrific traces they left behind. Lastly, the reason I say group is because there had been 3 road flares that had been lit on opposite sides of the field at practically the same time. There had to have been at least 3 of them in a group that night.
That's so creepy.
The story takes place.
Wait. I didn't get the end of that. Was there like some kind of like plot twist or something? Alright, all I got from like that story was that there was like creepy potatoes and stuff, but this one looks really scary.
America in the early 1980s, before my mom was married. She lived with her sister's husband, and their 3 dogs. My mother's family is from Ireland, and so is my aunt's husband. His sister, Mary Catherine, was visiting the States for a few weeks. During the daytime, everyone worked, so it was just Mary Catherine at home with their 3 dogs. Princess, a German Shepherd Standard Collie mix, Kelly, a German Shepherd Husky, and Mickey, a massive illegal wolf mix. All 3 dogs were big hams but fiercely protective. One day, my mom came home from work to find the lights turned out, shades drawn, and doors locked. She thought maybe Mary Catherine had gone for a walk, but when she opened the door, she met Mary, standing white as a sheet with a knife in her hand. "Oh, Patsy, something terrible happened today. We had a visitor," she spoke. Around noon, Mary was in the kitchen fixing herself some lunch when she heard the front door open. The dogs went crazy, howling and barking. The dogs never barked at family, so she went to see who it was. It was a man. A man she had never seen before let himself in through the unlocked door and was sitting on the couch.
What the heck? That is freaking scary. This random dude just came into their house and just started like sitting on the couch. That's honestly freaking creepy.
Stood on the staircase landing adjacent to the couch and refused to go near him. Before she could ask who he was, he said, "I'm very thirsty. Could you get me a drink of water?" She figured he was just a neighbor, or maybe his car had broken down. The house was situated in a remote and relatively safe area, so she didn't think of him as a threat. Plus, she was from a small village where she knew everyone, and unexpected guests were the norm for her. He sat on the sofa so casually, like he was waiting for someone. She said hello and went into the kitchen to get him a drink, ushering the dogs in with her to avoid making a fuss. They were very angry, growling at the man with their hackles raised, but they hadn't approached him. She had her back turned at the kitchen sink, filling up a glass of water, when she felt a hand clap on her shoulder. "Are you waiting on someone? The family won't be home for a while," Mary said nervously. "I know they won't," the man replied coldly. Mary whipped around to face the man. "You know," he said, "you're a good-looking woman, and I'm a good-looking man." The dogs backed up against her, barking and howling.
That is so creepy. And I'm really happy that like she has like her dogs by her side, because that's the creepiest thing I've ever heard. And this guy's the creepiest person I've ever seen.
Behind her to grab a knife off the block in one hand and the glass of water in the other. "I think you should drink your water and be on your way." The man stood and drank the water while Mary stood there with the dogs. She watched him place the glass on a table, open the door, go down the steps, and walk into the street until she lost sight of him. Once everyone was home, my mother called the police. There wasn't much they could do since Mary wasn't hurt and they hadn't heard any reports of break-ins or assaults lately, so they just took a statement. My family always tells this story as an example of how the Irish people tend to downplay unfortunate situations almost humorously. The Irish comedian Tommy Tiernan calls this a fundamental darkness that the Irish people have. We laugh at the blackness in life, but it leaves a lot of questions unanswered. Had that man been watching the house to know everyone's schedule?
Yeah,
knew that Mary wasn't from around here and was going to use that to take advantage of her? Or was he just a wandering creep looking for unlocked doors?
Honestly, there's a lot of creepy people in this world, and that's like so creepy how like he just walked in and just sat down and everything. That's just really creepy in my opinion. If that happened to me, I would probably freak out.
So I lived in the same house for about 10 years or so when this happened. Now I live at a dorm, and quite a few scary things happened to me and my sister as we shared a bed.
Alright, I might be blocking this guy's face in the photo, but there's a guy with like a mask, like wearing all black. And then there's the girl sleeping, so.
We're only 3 years apart and both girls. She also didn't like to sleep alone at that time, like most kids. Well, about 5 years into living into that house, my sister was about 10 and she was at the top bunk of our bunk bed. In the middle of the night, she suddenly screamed and I woke up asking what happened. She said she looked over the bunk bed rail and saw a figure in white, a female, walking around. For the sake of keeping her calm, I told her it was me getting up to get a drink. She accepted it and went back to sleep. It wasn't me. Since then, nothing happened until we moved into a different room in the house, switching rooms with her parents since they were putting down new carpet. After that first week, I started getting woken up in the middle of the night from different things. Some of them were just something smacking my bed, like with a large book. Several times I woke up with someone whispering into my ear. I would hear things fall to the floor, but in the morning nothing had. There was only one time I ever saw anything, and I believe it to be a different, well, spirit than the one that woke me up all the time. It was standing over my bed, and for the few seconds I saw it, I saw my grandfather who died when I was 10.
That's creepy.
This was kind of weird, but I was almost expecting it, as 4 other people in my family had seen his spirit, and my grandmother thinks he's watching over us and keeping bad away. I screamed, and after that I stopped being woken up in the morning by whatever until it came back for a few months. But there were fewer incidents. Ever since I moved to my dorm room, there's been nothing, which is good. The only noise I hear is the person next door getting ready for work at 3 in the morning.
Aw, it sucks.
And now,
It's
since
early.
my sister has taken over my bed at home because there was a spider on hers and my bed was more comfortable, I've been sleeping in the guest/game room, my older brother's old room. I haven't had anything happen to me. Still, just thinking about it makes me freak out. It's early November.
Yeah, there's something creepy about like paranormal stuff. Like I've always had like a fear of like ghosts and spirits and whatnot. Like when I was like younger, but like now, I've never had a paranormal experience. Like I'm good. But like when I was younger, I was afraid of like the dark because like I thought there was like something lurking in like the dark or something. And I find like paranormal stuff more scary than like murders and stuff, in my opinion. I don't know.
Cold, rainy, around midnight. My fiance and I like taking spontaneous late night drives. We typically start out on one of the main roads within our city and keep following it until we hit the next town.
Nice.
Sometimes our drives last hours. The layout of my county and the surrounding counties is a little bizarre. All of the cities and towns are isolated by large spreads of woods and country. I live in a relatively large college town, but a half-hour drive in one direction can land you stranded on jagged, unmarked gravel roads in the middle of nowhere, or in small, weird villages that no one knows about. It's actually pretty exciting, and that's why we do it so
It's pretty
much.
cool.
So it's midnight, and we're nearly lost. Willa, my fiance, is poking around on my phone trying to figure out what road we're on. We're on a mud path in a pit of country framed by small towns that we've never heard of. Flory, Winka, and Tell or something. There are no other cars on the road. It's rainy and misty, and the headlights on my car aren't doing a damn thing. There are stands of trees and brush on either side of the road. We're heading north. She tells me that she thinks we're going to cross 200th Street West, which runs into Rye Road, which is a straight shot to Winka. We make our way down the mud road for a half an hour and never hit it. We've always had fun on these sorts of drives. It's really the first time we've ever been on edge. Willa says we should have found 200th Street West already and asks if we passed it without noticing. I ask nervously if we should turn around, but she doesn't think we can without backing up into a tree or ditch. I'm driving a Mazda and it has an awfully wide turn. She's biting her nails while scrolling around on Google Maps. 10 minutes pass and we finally see a little black road snagging up a hill, branching off of the road we're on. I hurriedly turned into it. It's very narrow and twigs and branches are raking the doors and windows of the car. When we complete the climb up the little road, we find ourselves in a wide paved clearing with a house at the back of it,
Don't go in the
tucked into
house.
the thick woods. Willa doesn't miss a beat and starts hissing for me to turn around. Our headlights illuminate the whole property, which is in a major disrepair. No lights, windows shattered, siding and shingles shredded. The yard is littered with scraps and trash. Barrels, car parts, tools, hundreds of glass bottles, branches, slabs of concrete, rocks, nasty old Chevy pickup. It looks like the house is sitting on top of all of it. Every inch of the property is entangled in nets of ivy and weeds.
Aww.
Willa points out little moving shadows and glowing spots around the yard. There are dozens of cats around and they're all looking at us and their eyes are glimmering from the headlights. I almost piss myself when a walnut-sized rock darts out of the brush and pops against the windshield. It fractures the glass. Willa
Wait, so a random rock went through their windshield the size of a walnut? Damn.
and she grabs my arm. She's whimpering, "Denny, what was that? Oh my god, Den, what happened?" The rain is pouring in black streams down the trees, over the house, and across the pavement. All of the blood runs from my face. After a few seconds, a man stumbles out from the bushes and weeds and he's been carrying a fucking shovel. He's swallowed in a big dirty navy coat and has a beard. Then a screen door on the house opens and all the cats scatter. A tall, thin, spidery woman crawls out onto the porch. She has long, wild gray hair. She's just up high enough on the porch that the headlights don't reach her eyes. She wipes her unusually dark hands on her skirt. I have no clue what was on her hands, but that's what I remember the most about her.
Whoa.
How dark her hands were, and stares at us.
That's
Willa
so
is
creepy.
screaming and crying, slapping the door lock repeatedly. I throw the car into reverse, rolling over cinder blocks and branches, then screech back down the road. After Willis stops crying and there's some distance between us and the house, I start to relax. Yet, when we get out of the woods and hit a long straight stretch of road, I notice headlights behind us. I get a stomachache
What?
when I notice the car is mimicking all of our turns onto different roads. After nearly half an hour of being pursued, we finally reach Flory and pull into a gas station being visited by a few other people. I watch the vehicle pass. It's the same nasty Chevy truck we saw at the house.
Damn.
They stalked us all the way to the next town. We wait till we see the truck disappear down the road before we get out, get some food, and ask for directions. On our way home, I look at the rearview mirror more than I did at the road ahead. When we get back early in the morning, my teeth don't stop chattering until I fall asleep. So, creepy shovel guy and dirty hand cat witch, let's never meet again, ever again. Thanks.
That's insane because, like, their house was in the middle of nowhere. The lady had, like, some creepy long gray hair with, like, dark arms. I don't know what that's all about. And the dude had, like, a big, huge beard. And it's honestly so creepy. And I hope I never see those people either because that sounds really bad.
When me and my family first moved over to Los Angeles from Mexico, most of the houses we could afford were in the Compton area. So we looked around until we found this yellow, decrepit looking house that was a decent sized and pretty affordable. The owners were two sisters who were in their mid-70s to 80s. Before the purchase was made, I asked them about a picture of them with another woman. They told me that the other woman was their other sister, who had very bad hallucinations and was put into a mental hospital. I found that quite unnerving, but just went along with my parents' excitement and happy to finally have a true home. After a few
Nice.
weeks of getting settled in, a woman who no one knew would come by and just stand outside of our gate and just look at the house. One day, my mom invited her in for some coffee, and that's when she explained that she was the sister who was put in the mental hospital, and that she was let go for good progress and behavior. After
Nice.
that, she became pretty close with my family, and soon became like a good family friend. But in the following years, we noticed she started coming by less and less, until one night when everyone was asleep. I woke up to my brother in my bed shaking me. When I asked him what was wrong, he whispered to me, "There is a witch outside of the window." I told him to stop being dumb, and that's when he told me he had to cover the window with the curtains. Then we heard
Damn.
banging on our window, and followed up by a smash. Now at the time we had
What?
half of the window covered up by our mirror so that no one would be able to get in. But we saw this so-called witch trying to get in, and we noticed she had a knife in her hand.
That's
It wasn't
freaking
until I saw
creepy.
her face that I grabbed my brother and I ran with him to my parents' room. My dad thought we were being stupid until he heard screaming. She was yelling at the top of her lungs, "Get the fuck out of my house, you fucking beaners, I'm gonna kill you." My dad then grabbed his gun and shot a bullet into the window. He yelled that if she tries anything, he won't hesitate to blow her head off. My mom called the cops and we waited. They arrived.
I think that lady's schizophrenic and, like, she's, like, having, like, hallucinations like she did before. So,
Arrived in 10 minutes, and they found her in the bushes waiting for us to get out. When they arrested her, we realized that it was the sister who was in the hospital. We also found out she was covered in blood from killing one of the neighbor's dogs.
that's
To this
crazy.
day, I have realized that maybe she was starting to have hallucinations again, and must have thought her old house still belonged to her. After that, we ended up moving to a small house in Downey. But if there's one thing that I will never forget, it was her face. She looked not only out of it, but completely insane.
That is insane. That some people are capable of, like, murdering people. That's honestly just crazy. And I'm happy that they're okay.
This is a bit of a long story. There are 3 of us. We'll call them Nate, Brandon, and Jay. I'm
Okay.
Nate, and the story will be told from my perspective of the experience. So it's the beginning of the 9th grade. School started about 2 weeks ago. It's early September. So it's a Friday night. My friend Brandon and I were extremely bored just sitting at his house playing Halo Reach and Super Smash Bros. Melee. So it was
Good
about
game.
5 o'clock in the afternoon. Neither of our parents were home. Mine were on a business trip. His just work really late. So we headed on our bikes to get Subway sandwiches for dinner and bike around the neighborhood for a little bit, seeing if some of our other friends can hang out. We end up giving up and going back to Brandon's house around 7 p.m. and I get a call from my friend Jay, who goes to a different school, asking if Brendan and I wanted to go sleep over at his place that night. We said yes, and we were happy we had something to do. So Brandon got his stuff together, stopped by my house to feed the cat and grab my stuff for the sleepover, then headed over to Jay's house. We get to Jay's house, we go swimming in Jay's pool, play basketball, Xbox, street hockey, you know the stuff teenagers do.
Nice.
We had a great time. So then I remember I had some coupons for buy one get one free shakes from Sonic in my wallet. For any of you who don't know, Sonic is a drive-in restaurant that has amazing shakes. So we decided to bike on over there. It's about a 5-mile bike ride, and by the time we get there, it's 11:15 p.m. And this wasn't one of the Sonics open 24/7. This one closes at 11:30 p.m. So we arrived just in time to get 2 medium banana shakes and 1 medium caramel shake. So we hang out and get the shakes, and it was about 11:25, and Jay's dad texted us that we needed to be back by 1:45, which was far past curfew for our age, so we had over an hour till we needed to be back, so we decided to bike along the trails and around the neighborhood. First mistake, it was actually a pretty calm night, actually pretty relaxing. It was a good temperature, cool 60 or 65 degrees, and a nice breeze. So as we're riding around the paths, we end up accidentally making a wrong turn. Second mistake. After 20 or 30 minutes of biking, we realized we are completely lost in a forest. So
oh my god, yeah, perfect.
Third mistake.
Perfect
so
scary story scenario.
We turn on our flashlights on our cell phones to look around the forest to see if we recognize the area. As we're looking around, Brandon turns around and screams as his light shows up on 3 or 4 men with nightmare-inducing facial expressions. Jay and I look back, we scream. The scary men scream and they let out a freaky laugh. And we take off on our bikes as fast.
That is insane. Especially because they laughed.
As our
Damn.
bikes could carry us. We were never 100% sure if they chased us or not, but we were going too fast to notice, and we didn't want to risk slowing down to look back and have a chance of getting caught by them. As we get out of the forest on the streets, we pass a traffic light, and the street sign said Route 55, which was almost 10 miles away from our house, and we didn't know how we ventured out that far. But at least we knew how to get home from there. The only words that were uttered from us till we got back to Jay's house were, "Turn left here." We didn't see any cars on the road on the ride home, so we assumed that if they were following us, that we lost them. Every time a car passed by, we were worried it was them. But as we got closer and closer to the house, we saw less and less cars. Jay lived on a street that went up a hill and had a cul-de-sac on the top of the hill. Most of the houses were pitch black on the street. When we got home, we immediately checked to make sure all the doors and windows were locked just in case. We then scrambled upstairs to Jay's room and sat in a circle on the floor in complete silence. Then Brandon broke the silence by saying, "Nate, Jay, what the hell just happened?"
Yeah.
The 3 of us are still really good friends to this day. We never saw the people we saw in the woods that night again. It's been a few years since then, but one thing's for sure. The 3 of us will never forget that experience.
I would never forget that experience either. That sounds really creepy. Alright, that was the top 15 terrifying, true scary stories. If you want to hear the rest of them, the original will be in the description down below. I can't really talk, but these are really creepy. And like I think like the creepiest one in my opinion was the lady with the knife. I thought that was like so creepy. They're all pretty creepy in their own way, but like that's really creepy. And the first one where like the lady was like covered in like mud and vomiting mud, that's so creepy as well. And I freaking love true terrifying true stories. I love scary stories, and these are really awesome. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video. And if you want me to react to any of your videos, leave me a comment down below with your video and I'll go check it out. And hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for watching, guys.